Hey guys, Steven here, Fanatic Perspective. So it's been a little bit since I've done just a pure Cowboys video. Me and Jim did the draft uh, live stream last week, so it was cool to talk some boys there. But I want to get back to talking boys and getting down to the nitty gritty, especially under the new coaching regime, right? Brian Schottenheimer now at the helm, and it's been so long. I haven't even talked about Shotty, but that's not going to be this video. We're going to review the draft picks and just, kind of present my overall thoughts now that I've had a few days to really sit with it, um, understanding the direction, what we're trying to do. And let me frame that real quick as well, right? What we're trying to do being relative to the constraints that the Jones family and this organization put on this franchise of how they want to operate. We're not a serious franchise like the Philadelphia Eagles, like the Kansas City Chiefs, like the Buffalo Bills, teams that are the Baltimore Ravens, the teams that are in the mix year in, year out for actual Super Bowls, championships, playoff success. We are in the business of staying relevant. We are in the business of being a media darling and being competitive enough to maintain that status. Now, when things like injuries occur to a high volume last year, that quickly goes away, and we highly leverage our top end people, and many of our top end guys on this roster come by exception and not the rule. And you'll see what I mean by that later on here. But I'm still a Cowboys fan. I'm still going to talk about my boys, even though they are not a serious franchise until they prove to be and they show us. Um, but nonetheless, there always can be a breakthrough. There always can be an element of just flat out luck with the right, you know, things in place to have some success. We've seen lesser franchises still have a breakthrough and do some things and have success. I'm going to go through and pick by pick, starting with Tyler Booker at pick 12. While I do that, hit the like button, subscribe the whole bit. I appreciate you guys. But we're going to do the run through of the 2025 Dallas Cowboys draft. So let me go ahead and share my screen and let's see what we got up here. So right off the bat, and you guys got to kind of see my live reaction, right? Like this was this was something where I was with Jim, if you will. Um, Obviously, we were all expecting to have a skill position player that we were targeting at pick 12 or movement there, and then we end up with the guard, and it's kind of funny Jane Slater's report being on point versus guys that cover the team like Clarence and others who were all adamant. You look at the Blogging the Boys website, who I respect all those guys over there. I've worked with some of them. All have said, "Hey, we're going either Tet McMillan, Matthew Golden, or even Emeka Akuba." So Abuka. So to end up with Tyler Booker here, and I'm gonna say what I said the other day. It's not the player; it's how you got to the player. It's not the player, it's how you got to the player. Tyler Booker in a show, and this is the theme of the draft. Dallas is trying to get tougher. Let me start there. There's interior toughness in general, phone booth mentality, the whole bit. Dallas is trying to get tougher as a football program that is very adamant with the coaching staff hires under Brian Schottenheimer that's been adamant, and Brian Schottenheimer's speech. So toughness, all that. And look, at the core of it, I will never be upset as a fan of any football team where they want to get tougher. They're looking at themselves in the mirror and they're saying, we haven't been physical enough. We've lost playoff games where we've been punched in the mouth early in games, where we haven't been able to stop the run, where we haven't been able to establish the run. I understand that. I'm always going to be behind that. But to break through to win a championship, that's almost like the basic prerequisite, right? Like you need more. And here's where we as fans like myself get a little confused. Dallas, it's not like Dallas didn't invest in free agency in offensive line. Now, when I say invest, I mean that relevant to what we even consider investing. Lord knows we're not a serious franchise where we go and actually consider roster building at every tier, right? Which includes free agency, like other teams do. We actually wait and bargain bin shop. But even with the bargain bin mentality, we signed two guards. We signed Sadiq Charles, we signed Robert Jones, and not to mention Brock Hoffman, who started 7 games last year, and some people like TJ Bass. And I understand that none of those guys are Tyler Booker, but that's four different people that were invested in guard and you also have a all Pro Bowl level left guard in Tyler Smith. So the confusion comes is you spent money there. There's been no investment. There's been no need to get weapons for your $60 million quarterback or helping out your 34, $35 million a year wide receiver who is facing bracket coverage and double team and having to defeat 2, 3 people all the time because they only have each other. I don't understand why not move to get more picks. That's where I'm getting with the Tyler Booker thing. I do feel as though Dallas could have at least gotten a player, either Tyler himself or a player similar, had they been more aggressive moving back. Now, one may say, hey, they tried to call the Texans, they tried to call the teams, they weren't able to get a deal done, Steve. Look, the Cowboys are shitty over the phone. Okay. They have been for several years. They don't know how to work other teams the way the good teams do. So of course they weren't able to get a deal done. Of course they were caught off guard when McMillan goes to the Carolina Panthers and they're not on the phone immediately at that point. These things are this is common Cowboys work. So while they get a very good football player, I have no doubt in my mind that Tyler Booker is going to be good for us day one. I've had doubts about guys. I think we've had worse luck picking later in the first round, right? Obviously the Taco Charltons and the Mozzie Smiths of the world immediately come to mind. We've struggled picking later in the first round versus picking around this point, right? This is around the point where we did something really good a couple years ago or a few years ago where we traded back and drafted Micah Parsons, right? And even there, he stumbled into being the player he is because we drafted him to be a traditional off-ball linebacker and he's not edge rusher. But that's neither here nor there. They hit the pick. They hit on the pick. Tyler Booker replacing Zach Martin, I get it, but it's how you got there. Give me more value. Get some other picks. Move back. Maybe you're able to go up and get another receiver in the second or third round with some of the value that you accumulate. Getting a Tyler Booker, and now we're in business, right? Now we're cooking because what ends up happening with the second pick is awesome, right? In the second round, Donovan Ezrau from Boston College, who I thought was going to go in the top 20. I mean, with his pass rushing abilities, being at a premier position, us not really trusting what we know Sam Williams is coming back, not really trusting that. Dante Fowler coming back to us from Dan Quinn in Washington got off to a hellacious start in Washington, then tampered off and tailed off in the playoffs. But with all that and Nealon coming back too, right? Like Ezraku's perfect pickets in the second round. That like getting a guy like that falling, I mean, that's almost equivalent value to Tyler Booker, in my opinion. That's how highly regarded I feel on Donovan Ezraku. And I am totally down going best player available, considering the holes that this defense has both ways. No problem here. But where you put yourself in a bind when you don't put in the work before the draft to properly build out your roster is now you're left telling me that Jonathan Mingo's wide receiver too. Now you're left telling me that CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott are in the same boat that they were last year with no improvements around them in the throw game and the pass catching game. Even if we are going to be a downhill run the football type team, you still in the modern day NFL need to have that threat on the outside. And here's the thing, I don't trust them. People keep saying, well, they're going to go make a deal to address that position. When and with who? George Pickens is out there. They're not going to do it until they prove me wrong. They're not going to go get Cortland Sutton until they prove me wrong. They're not going to go trade for JMO. What are they waiting on? They're waiting on Ruggs to get out of prison next year. Like, what are we doing? So we're still going to be in the same boat where Dak is going to have to be fitting the ball, in between open, this windows this big where the blinds are half closed. But with what the confines of where they put themselves and where they pigeonhole themselves, I like the pick of getting Donovan Ezrau in terms of the outright pick. Now, third round, we always take our and I like the Cowboys is. I will give them credit. They always take the shot on that guy. I mean, Jaylen Smith, immediately comes to somebody that's banged up or a diamond in the rough that if he was healthy, obviously with Siobhan Ravel, who I give him a lot of credit, didn't transfer. Could have, most of the guys, especially in the age of transfer portal, NIL, he easily could have gone and played at Alabama or Auburn his last couple years or any of these top tier schools in the SEC. And he stayed home at East Carolina, did his thing, and unfortunately he suffered a torn ACL in September. But the skill set was too good to pass on here. A lot of folks in the Blocking the Boys box actually had this pick at pick 44 in the second round and would have been pleased with that. So, again, shows you the value there. Obviously, we have a huge need at corner with the health that we already have there. We're still going to need to address that position even further, considering how many guys are injured. But my big thing is with now scheme outstanding, because I don't know how we're going to leverage that, but it just really sucks to lose Jordan Lewis. I would have been cool with this pick even if we still had Jordan Lewis, but you go and get it as Araku and you let other guys walk in free agency out of the defensive end room. But we're still happy with the pick. But you also have to make a pick like this because the injury considerations and then your best corner on one of your best defensive players last year, you've also let them walk out the door. So it's frustrating. But the profile on him long term could be greatness, right? This type of size, his aggressiveness, his football IQ, ability in press man, and even some zone technique. I like him technique wise. I know there's things to clean up, and physicality in the run game, especially with his frame and size. But when you're looking to play a certain type of defense, these are the corners you want. And so I understand the physical profile was way too good to pass up. And, I'm pleased. The one thing I will give them, I try to be fair, right? They got three good football players. Just in terms of what we've gone through so far, I like each and every one of these picks. I have no issue with the player that is being added to the roster. And I do think it is on brand in terms of toughness, physicality, and what the Cowboys are trying to establish, again, within the confines of which they're allowed to work in terms of the coaching staff. Now, we got my boy up next, my boy Blue. And I'm going to run through these because these are some of the day three guys. But Jaden Blue, excellent pick considering the bargain bin shopping that's been done in our running back room with Javonte Williams, Miles Sanders. We know we have the brother Deuce Vaughn hanging around as well as one of the more one of the pet cats projects in the building. But Jaden Blue was the number one running back coming out of high school when he did before some of the situation got caught up in. But he's been well coached at Texas. He's been in a room with 4 other NFL backs and gives us an element that we just quite frankly haven't had since Tony Pollard, which is explosiveness and getting, that breakaway ability. Now, where we want him to become our Tony Pollard is trust, right? And that's trust with ball handling and ball security. He would have played a lot more at Texas without the fumble, and that's been well documented. Everybody understands that with Jaden Blue. But one thing I will present to you with Jaden Blue, outside of the known strengths with his receiving game, out of the backfield as well as in the slot. He can dot you up even out of the slot, and there's a lot he can do versatility wise, all over. I mean, even in interior, he's not a bad interior runner. It's just really ball security issues. But the thing I want to introduce with Jaden Blue is he's a big game player. Every big game we had at Texas, he showed up and he was there in the clutch. Texas A&M game, passing, getting a touchdown in the back of the end zone. Ohio State, he catches 2 touchdowns on the wheel route. His best game of last season was the Clemson game. The year before, Texas Tech game, going into the Big 12 championship game, he takes off for an 80-yarder. He busted big time plays, almost helped us come back against Washington in the playoff game. Jaden Blue is a big time player. If he can clean up the stuff that Tashard Choice, former Cowboy, had been working with him on, he can be a real player, not just for us, but in this league, right? Like he can make some noise. But I think it's complimentary, especially to what we did later in the 7th round, getting Maffa from Clemson. Um, Shamar James, I did not like this pick. I understand linebackers a need with Overshown's injury and when he will come back, and you know we signed Kenneth, as you guys see there, signed Kenneth Murray, signed Jack Sadmore. I like the Sanborn signing. My thing with James is, why are we not taking Georgia players? And why are we not taking guys who, what's the upside that Shamar James brings when Smile Munden Jr. was still on the board? So I need somebody to explain that to me. Because shortly after, the Eagles take Smile Munden Jr., and that guy's a top, I'm not big on the former 5, but he was a former top 30 player. He was a baller at Georgia. He just had some injury stuff. And he's much better in coverage, better athlete, honestly, significantly better athlete. Shamar James brings physicality. He's tough, but I don't see anything for him beyond being a career special teamer and spot starter at best. I don't. Whereas Munden just had so much more upside and just seemed to be more of the type of profile linebacker that you needed, especially getting by without Overshown for a while. Like, don't get it at all. So I didn't like that pick. And I didn't have guys like Cornelius. I don't have too much there. I mean, there's depth there. He's played a lot of football, played on a really good team, blocked for Jordan James, but we'll see how that develops. As they say here, he'll be in a roster battle with Asim Richards. Development. Now, what I'm excited about under Clayton Adams and this staff is I do think offensive line development will be prioritized. So maybe this pick develops into something. We haven't had too much luck with our late round tackles recently. The Matt Walesko's of the world, the one guy who was a terrible person, Ball, that's still around or whatever. But it is what it is. Jay Toya, I do like Jay. Now maybe if we could address, I may have probably, instead of taking Cornelius, picking another defense tackle. But Jay was a guy who we actually got committed for a day coming to Texas in the portal, but he just leveraged us for more money and then went back to UCLA. But people, for those who don't know, UCLA had a really strong defense. They've had a lot of guys drafted over the last couple of years. They weren't strong last year, but they've had a strong, the personnel that they had, especially in 2023, was when they were really, really good. But their defensive coordinator went to USC. But he was in the middle of that group, and I definitely see him pushing Mozzie Smith and others in the middle. I could see this actually being a really, really cool pick. With he has a lot of limitations. If he had more pass rush ability, obviously he would have gone higher than round 7. But you know, I'll take it at this point. I think that was great value that the Cowboys got there. And then Tommy from Maryland, I'm not going to go into too much. Again, that's another upside pick. So they did end up getting the D tackle later on. Health and where he plays is going to be interesting because he did play across the line at Maryland. So we'll see what he does. Maffa, great pick. With him, I get my big sledgehammer back, but also a guy that can run away from people. Thing with Maffa was he was just really banged up at the end of last year. he was really, really banged up. He barely played in our game. I think he needed some. I think he had some shoulder issues. So we'll see. There's a reason why he fell to this spot. Um, now, also just the blocking ability. I also think he has some ability also to catch the ball at the backfield. Not like Jaden Blue at all, but that's a nice little complementary twosome that you can add to a room, right there with Javante and Miles and Deuce, and forgot about Malik Davis earlier, but they got him there. So love the Mafa pick, right? So, and then another guy I just want to add as I get around to this, Treshawn Holden, undrafted free agent. The Cowboys did bring him on from Oregon, formerly of Alabama. That was my favorite undrafted free agent signing just because he plays receiver. But he's also really, really talented. He was another blue chip recruit, and somebody who ended up having a lot of success ended up getting having a better career at Oregon than he did at Alabama when he was playing with Bryce Young. But where do the Cowboys go from here? What's the next move, right? There's been talk about, do they go and get an Amari Cooper? Do they go and what's the trade market looking like? Do you look at older guys like a Keenan Allen? Teams are still making moves right now, and the Cowboys are sitting on their hands as per usual. I think we'll hear a lot of smoke, a lot of smoke, a lot of smoke. We'll bring in somebody that is somebody on the even below the level of a Brandon Cooks, like we did a few years ago, and they will try to convince us and gaslight us that that's enough, that's enough, and it has nothing. Again, this has nothing to do with Dak's contract or CeeDee Lamb's contract. This has everything to do with the fact, and this is what pisses me off the most, when they restructured their contracts and tried to say, all right, we're going to get aggressive. We're going to give our first year head coach everything he needs. And then you have another lukewarm free agency. You have another situation where you're investing all this money into somebody at the quarterback position, but you don't want to do what other teams are doing when they invest in those positions. I mean, Trevor Lawrence, for example, Jacksonville's paying him a shit ton of money. He hasn't done anything there so far. And they're going and getting Travis Hunter. They're getting aggressive. They're trading up. They're going to go and get whatever they freaking need to say, hey, we paid you, but weapons will not be an excuse. Personnel will not be an excuse. And that's how you, I mean, if you invest in a home or whatever, you spend a lot of money on it. You would think that you would do everything you can to maximize that investment so you get a return, right? You wouldn't just say, hey, I hope, yes, you want a lot to come out of that, but I just don't understand. I mean, I do, but it's frustrating. But overall, we're tougher. We got stronger. I do think that the Cowboys will be a good football team as long as Dak Prescott is healthy, as long as CeeDee Lamb is healthy, as long as Micah Parsons is healthy. But we're very, very top heavy. And we're in a tough division where before we just had to deal with one competent franchise, and they happen to be the most competent franchise in the league, the Philadelphia Eagles, reigning Super Bowl champions. But now Washington's in the mix, So it'll be interesting to see. But let me know in the comments how you guys felt about the draft. What grade you give it? I give it a B, especially considering all the. Give it a solid B, especially how considering again the confines in which they have to draft in. But hit me up in the comments. Let me know what you think. Super chat, hope or super chat. Subscribe, hit the like button, whole bit. I appreciate you guys, and I'll be back next time. Peace.